All right, let's jump right into this. We're going to be looking at a story from the Gospel of John, chapter 5. But we're not just going to treat this as a simple miracle story. No, we're going to unpack this encounter at the Pool of Bethesda for what it really is, a pretty challenging look at human nature, at divine power, and maybe most importantly, what happens when unearned grace smacks right into an ungrateful heart.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll set the scene at this pool of misery. Then we'll zoom in on the one hopeless man at the center of it all. After that, we'll get into the miracle itself, the crazy conflict it caused, and then the hardest part. We're going to turn that mirror back on ourselves.
Okay, so the story kicks off at a very real place in Jerusalem, the Pool of Bethesda. But as you're about to see, the name of this place and the reality of this place, well, they couldn't be further apart.
Yeah, the name itself is Bethesda. In Hebrew, that means house of mercy. Sounds nice, doesn't it? It sounds like a place of healing, of comfort, of hope. But this name is actually setting up this really powerful, kind of gut-punching irony for the scene Jesus is about to walk into.
Because in reality, this so-called house of mercy was more like a warehouse of human suffering. The source material describes a huge crowd of invalids just lying there. It was a massive collection of broken humanity, all gathered in one spot.
And let's get a really clear picture of this. This was not some serene healing spa. No way. The sources paint this grim scene, a huge crowd of the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. There's no nursing staff, no clean linens. It would have been smelly, ugly, and filled with disease. Honestly, it's the kind of place most of us would probably cross the street to avoid. But this is exactly where Jesus goes.
And out of this whole sea of broken people, Jesus zeroes in on one guy, just one single nameless man, a man whose problem wasn't a recent development. Not even close.
38 years. Just let that sink in for a second. For nearly 4 decades, this man had been an invalid. This wasn't a bad chapter in his life. This was his life. It was defined by paralysis, by helplessness, for longer than many people had even been alive.
So Jesus walks up to him and asks a question that on the surface seems almost absurd. Do you want to get well? I mean, of course he does, right? What kind of question is that? But it's not a trick question. It's a diagnostic one. It's designed to reveal what's really going on in this man's head.
And just look at his answer. He doesn't say yes. He doesn't even answer the question at all. He just launches straight into his list of excuses. He blames the situation, the fact that he has no one to help him, his bad luck. His entire focus is on all the reasons why he can't get better, not on the person in front of him offering him hope.
Our source material nails this. It calls it a classic victim mentality. You know, this is that mindset where a person gets so used to their misery that it actually becomes their identity. They don't really want a solution because in a strange way, their suffering has become a benefit. It's their excuse for everything. It's their comfort zone.
And right here is where the story completely flips the script on us. The miracle that's about to happen shatters all our ideas about who deserves help or who has enough faith to be healed.
Jesus just completely cuts through all the man's whining and all his excuses. He doesn't argue with him. He doesn't say, "Oh, you poor thing." He just speaks. He gives a command that is packed with creative, world-altering power.
And here's the kicker. The healing was completely 100% unearned. The source is emphatic on this point. There is zero evidence this guy had any faith whatsoever. In fact, he comes across as one of the dullest, most uninterested people in the whole narrative. And that's the point. It shows that Jesus' power is not dependent on our attitude. It's not limited by our worthiness. This was a pure, unprompted act of sovereign grace.
So an incredible, life-changing miracle just happened. A man, paralyzed for 38 years, is up and walking around. You'd think there'd be a party, right? Celebration? Nope. What follows is immediate conflict.
This slide just says it all, doesn't it? It's this total clash of perspectives. The religious leaders look at this unbelievable scene, and what do they see? A broken rule. A man is carrying his mat on the Sabbath. That's it. They are so fixated on their regulations that they completely, totally miss the miracle. A human life was just restored right in front of their eyes, and they missed it.
And what about the man himself? Well, when the authorities confront him, his dullness is on full display. The most monumental thing that could ever happen to a person has just happened to him, and he has no idea who did it. They ask him who healed him, and he basically says, "I don't know, some guy told me to do it." It shows this profound lack of awareness, a total disinterest in the source of his own miracle.
So all of this has been building to the final, and let's be honest, the most uncomfortable part of this whole analysis. This is the point where the story stops being about some guy from 2,000 years ago and starts being a mirror pointed directly at you and me.
Jesus actually tracks the man down again, and when he finds him, he gives him this pretty intense warning. He connects the physical healing to a much deeper spiritual reality. He's basically saying, yes, you're physically well now, but you need to change your life, because there are things far, far worse than being paralyzed for 38 years.
Now, to help us wrap our heads around this idea, this being healed but still being in spiritual danger, the source gives us this amazing analogy. Think about a giant, prize-winning tuna. It looks perfect, right? It's healthy, valuable, seems flawless. But because of the polluted waters it swims in, there's a latent, unseen poison deep in its flesh, mercury. The argument is that this is a picture of a Christian. We are made whole and healthy by grace, but we still carry this latent poison of sin that we have to constantly deal with.
So, how does the man respond to all this? To the healing, to the warning, with gratitude, with a changed life? No. The moment he finds out Jesus' name, he goes straight to the authorities and, as the source puts it, he rats Jesus out. He shifts all the blame for breaking the Sabbath rule, basically saying, hey, don't look at me. It was Jesus. He's the one who told me to do it.
And this, right here, is the gut punch. This is the whole point. The author of our source material makes this really startling confession. He says, you know why this ungrateful, dull, blame-shifting guy irritates me so much? Because he's me. I see my own reflection in his behavior. And that right there is the challenge for every single one of us.
So we have to end with this question. It's so easy for us to sit back and judge this man at the pool, to criticize his victim mentality, his spiritual dullness, his incredible ingratitude. But if this story is really meant to be a mirror, what do you see in it? What parts of his story reflect your own? Do you ever find yourself making excuses, taking God's grace for granted, shifting blame when you should be giving thanks? That's the question we're left to wrestle with.